Welcome to the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Together we explore the vast landscapes of life, delving into the rich soil of experiences, sowing the seeds of curiosity, and harvesting the profound wisdom that each episode unfolds. What's up? Welcome to another podcast of Harvesting Wisdom. I'm your host, Mike McMahon. Today with me is Christophe from Louis Latour, kind of the man in charge of all operations, field operations, all the way into barreling and wine selection and flavor and the whole bit, all the way down. You just don't do the bottling or the sales marketing stuff at the other end.
Thank God, no.
It's a whole different game. Well, you got quite a handful because Louis Latour is known worldwide as being certainly among the best. This area, in my mind, has always been the greatest wine produced by man, and you're living it. I mean, that is like a dream. And some people, maybe they think it's odd, but for me, this is an amazing thing. So you've been involved with, you were educated in the industry and moved around quite a bit, but you're from France, closer to the Bordeaux area, and so this is nothing new, but you've been kind of running this program for 15 years with the family.
Yes.
And so let's talk about some of the things that you're doing. I don't know if you have a name. You have a project. What's the name of the project? It's I've got it written down. We'll get to it. But the idea of what you and I were talking about in the car is that you're basically reforesting or leaving native plant material or indignant and foundation plants in the soil alongside of or in the perimeter of the field. For instance, at the end of this field right now, we see an entire native forest. I don't know how, if every plant in it is native or not, but it's co-evolved for a long, long time with the biology.
Yeah, it's a bush. Usually on top of the hills in Burgundy, you used to have bushes and ships. Now there are not so many bushes, so it's and ships, and so it's evolving into a forest more or less nowadays, but just a natural one with local species.
Right.
And nothing's planted. But that's great help because it helps us cope with climate change, cooling down the climate, stopping the water to run off down the hill,
Yes.
and just letting the water get through the soils to just moisturize the vineyards below it.
Yeah, it acts as a bit of a sponge too, right?
Yeah.
It's left natural to itself. The entire perimeter is protected from up above, and generally, when people are growing grapes, they don't grow it to the top of the hill. They come off the top as much as 10% or 20% or whatever it is, and that's to keep the wind from, taking the ridge line out, right?
There are problem with the winds also, because of erosion. Usually the soil is quite very shallow on the top, and the vine's struggling a lot. And also that's more of a Burgundian problem, but we were very up north to make good wines, so usually on top of the hill, because of the altitude, you can have a bit of a struggle to perfectly ripen sometimes.
Right. So I talked with Philippe a little bit ago, and we talked about kind of the cooperation between all of the families that have been growing here for 100 or 200 years. Latour has been over 200 years, 7 or 8 generations now. Is that right?
Yeah.
So it does take a lot of cooperation. You were mentioning that if you tried to do something solo, it just doesn't work, right?
Yeah, you know, the Latour family has been around for since 1797, so that's quite a bit of time. But
Yeah.
like the Drouin family, like the Bouchard family, and so on. And to give you an idea, just the plot you've been filming is around 2 acres, roughly.
That's it.
In these 2 acres, nowadays there is 2 growers, the Jadot family and the Latour family. But on this kind of small scale, you can sometimes have 3, 4 different growers.
No
So
kidding.
if you want to work at the landscape to help biodiversity at that kind of scale, with everybody having such small plots, you need to work together.
Right.
On your own with half an hectare or acre, you won't have any impact. But if you can gather people around the project of protecting biodiversity, keeping dry walls, keeping the forest all together, suddenly you have an impact.
Do you ever, if you're on this same plot with as many as 1, 2, 3, or 4 others, do you ever take those grapes and make a single bottled product? Or
usually everybody does his own wine on his own plot. There is, I knew there were in the Montrachet down there. There has been a cooperation in 1916 where because of the frost, there was such a small crop that many growers did one bottling altogether. But that's very unusual.
1916.
2016.
Oh, 26. I was going to say, boy, you guys know your history and you can go back that far. But yeah, so there's an advantage to that, I guess. One of the things I talked to Philippe about, and I'll bring it up to you as well. We see in the United States this last generation, the Y, I think, or Z, no, I think it's the Y generation. They're not drinking much alcohol to begin with. They're not drinking wines. They're not drinking. They're sampling with new things. His belief and mine is as well that people will come around.
Yes, you know, I think that particularly in Burgundy, we're not so much selling wine as we're selling culture, you know. It's
Right.
also a way of life with some kind of cooking, and here wine is a lot about celebration of a place, being all together with the family, and not so much about the impact of alcohol, because, you know, it's really something that you can enjoy at a smaller scale.
So I grow in Arizona in the desert strictly to test my soils because I have a soil company that does organic regenerative soils. And we've learned a lot. We've really learned how to keep the grapes better. But at the end of the day in Arizona, the temperatures go to 122 degrees, 120 degrees, which I don't even know in Celsius, that's 40 plus.
Yeah.
And so the plant shuts down.
Yeah.
So I've battled it for 10 years in a row, trying different extracts and teas and different soil stuff, and the grapes look great all the way until they shut down. So I get halfway through veraciation and only can take the red grape off, but I'm losing half of the grapes. And I come to the realization that it probably needs to be a different variety being grown. It's got to be a different grape that has a shorter window or can harvest earlier, right?
Cope with high temperature, maybe.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
So you guys are all somewhat involved, right? He was mentioning that you guys will do maybe as many as 15 different varieties. You'll give them to a nursery, and the nursery will try to grow them out, and then you'll put them into a vineyard. And
Yes, the thing is that we're part of an association with 37 other growers in Burgundy that, again, collectively put all of their method selection together and then explore the diversity of Pinot and Chardonnay to be able to make the best possible wines, but also have resilience against climate change, you know.
right.
Because, you know, it's a very simple idea, but to make a comparison, imagine you're driving the clones that we were using in the 70s to plant in the vineyard is like a Formula One.
Yeah.
Like, it's beautiful, it grows quickly, makes a lot of sugar, good aromas. But the problem is that, like Formula One, there is a bumper and you're stopped. You can't move away, okay? Whereas when you have diversity, like you have with Formula One, but also a four-wheel drive, a Ferrari, a Peugeot, or whatever, then suddenly when there's the bumper on the road, maybe one or two won't be able to cope with that bumper, but 90% or 95% will be able. And so the idea is that having a lot of putting together our different materials, we'll be able to have resilience about climate change through diversity.
And these aren't like an experiment you do in the winter. These are things that take at least a decade or so.
It's something that started nearly 20 years ago.
Right. And now the only issue is the acceleration of climate change is a little mind-boggling because we don't know what's going to come next. Here in France, at least in Burgundy, you don't have irrigation.
No, it's dry farming all the way.
So you guys are using a compost. Do you produce any of your own compost, or do you just buy it in?
No, we're doing our own compost. In a vineyard, every year you produce wood, branches,
right.
leaves, grapes. And the idea is that we'll take the juice to make the wine, obviously, but to put all of the other things of the produce back to the soil.
And that's the best amendment you can do.
Yeah.
It's the same crop going back in.
So all of the branches are shredded during winter and get back to the soil, and then all of the seeds, the stems, etc., will be composted with some manure from a local dairy farmer, and that will be put back into the field after 6-8 months.
Now that's a big process. How do you get that spread? These tractors that I've seen that go.
Yeah, you need tractors that go on
every
top.
2/3, right?
They can go just on one, or they can have two? One or two. Yeah.
Okay. We're seeing some. I see just a little area right there where the leaves are a little yellow. Is that a little chlorotic?
Is
that a rose bush, or what do you got going over there?
It's a virus.
Okay.
That impacts the chlorophyll.
Okay.
And makes yellow. So that's an issue, a big issue, in Burgundy, because there is oftentimes people put vineyards onto vineyards without enough time between vineyards for the soil to rest and the viruses
to die off. Now, you're not allowed to spray anything because are you organic as well?
Yes, we're organic, so we can spray copper and sulfur.
Okay.
And that's it.
Sometimes that does.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're putting a biology down. I imagine they might allow you to put in a biology product rather than a chemical.
Yeah, nowadays we have biological products more on to protect us from botrytis, more than mildew and powdery mildew.
Right. So, and that's a dangerous game too, right? Even if you put biology down, unfortunately, it can kill all microbes, not just the one.
Yeah, that's one of the problems. I've never been too prone to use this kind of technologies because, we do wines with the yeast that are on the skin of our berries.
Yeah.
So I don't want to change the balance of life on that surface.
God, that makes sense, yeah. So now, how about, do you have children of your own?
Yeah, I have 3 boys.
Any of them interested in the business? They're still too young.
They're quite young, but usually every year they come to the winery, do a few punching down with me. So they have quite some fun with that, and we'll see if they want to get involved in the vineyard more.
Do you share a little wine at dinner with them? Or
they're too young for that for the moment.
Oh, I started giving it to my kids when they're 4 or 5 years old. just a little taste. They loved it, You enjoy wines from all over the world and testing. But I imagine you always come back to home, to Pinot Noir. It's hard to to not love that?
Yes, obviously. I'm not from Burgundy, and I came here because I fell in love with Pinot Noir. To me, it's just a nose wine. I find that you can spend so much time just smelling the wine. It's like Pinot is like perfume, you know. It's
I had I can't even remember what it was. I had a white wine at lunch when I first came to my hotel, and I just wanted to smell it. I didn't want to drink it. It was so good. I got to remember what it is now, but that'll come to me. So that's part of the, you know, what you fell in love with when you started growing the Pinot Noir grape. I got a question. There's at least 37 growers that you mentioned that are in association. This is a hard challenge for people who haven't got the history like Latour, because Latour, the storytelling can pass down. You know, they can tell you what happened during phylloxera, or, you know, 100 years ago, or whatever. They can tell you in 1961. I guess that was a great year. I was born in 60, so I don't know. But, you know, and they'll tell you what the conditions were, and they'll tell you, you know, what was going on at the time. It really allows you to stay very much in tune with the environment. You have to be, right?
Yeah.
And so, would you say in your 15 years, do you notice environmental impacts at all with the acceleration of climate?
You know, in the 20th century, Latour started harvest in August in 1947.
Wow.
In the 21st century, we started harvest in August in 2003, 2007, 2011, 2019, 2020, and 2025.
Otherwise?
So yeah, we feel there is a bit of change, for sure.
Yeah, and that's I mean, for people who don't understand, this is for people who are actively involved with any kind of an agriculture. They can see that there's an effect, right? That there's an acceleration.
The things are going faster and faster. You know, in 2020, we even finished harvest in August. Wow. And when you look, we have graphs with the beginning and finishing of harvest, and you see the trend, like, of it being earlier and earlier consistently. Maybe 1 year will be a bit later, 1 year will be a bit, but the tendency clearly earlier and earlier every year.
I thought that back in the day that it was as late sometimes as an early September.
I would say that in the 20th century, the early year was 10th of September. That was a early time.
Wow.
And a late harvest would be 10th of October.
Wow.
Whereas nowadays, early harvest is like 15th, 20th of August, and late harvest is 15th of September.
Wow.
So yeah, it's changed, shift. When we were there, I took a picture of that because we're not even in May, and that looks like a vineyard that could have been the end of May or the beginning of June.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Ago.
When did this bud out? Did you start in March?
It was, the debating occurs at the very, very end of March, beginning of April this year.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's one of the 2 or 3 earliest year we've had so far in our memories.
Wow. So the advantage of these grapes, however, is, and I usually look at the caliper size on the grape. What would you guess these are, about 30-year-old grapes?
No,
20,
these are babies.
There's always some babies mixed in.
Yeah, here you have, that plot comes from, has been planted in 21. And then there is a holder vine just next to it.
Up over there, yeah. So, do you ever test the root depth? It's almost impossible. How deep do you think these roots are going? 10 meters?
No, far less than that, because, you know, for at least for most of the vineyards in Burgundy, what I think makes them great wines, a great place to make good wines, is that we have very shallow soils, 50, 60 centimeters. And after that, usually very hard concrete limestone, at least for the Premier and Grand Cru.
Okay. And then the roots will go lateral.
Yeah, won't be able to go in, and there's nothing in to suck in.
Okay.
So, and so that very shallow soils means very little water reserve, and that's what's used to help us to be able, even in bad years, to still ripen. Nowadays, it's a challenge because, we had less than a third of the usual water this April, and the wine is going up, so we'll need a bit of water. And with the shallow soils, if you don't have water every 2-3 weeks, the vine starts to struggle a bit.
So if you get a month or two of drought,
it's a big problem.
It really reduces yield quite a bit, huh? I notice in here, I don't see a lot of cover. You do mostly your cover crops in the winter?
Yes.
For erosion and
the issue in Burgundy is the regulation tells us to have a very high density, and this high density coupled with climate change and little rain obligates us to get rid of competition during the growing season.
Okay. So you have
for water.
You have to actually pull them. At what point in time do you have to weed
usually
it out?
The idea is that we want to be if we have a rainy April, I would say that we will try to have it last until the end of April. And this year was very dry April and a very early debedding. We get rid of it during April.
Yeah, it is still April technically.
Yeah,
and this feels like summer almost to me.
Yeah,
I mean it's right before I left Phoenix, a little over a month ago, we had temperatures in still winter, technically winter, in March of 107 degrees in the winter. And that makes you really think about crop choice and how you're treating the soil and how you're growing things and what that future might be. So with 37 different growers, being competitive with each other makes no sense whatsoever. You're trying to protect a tradition and a culture. The wine itself pretty much sells. Anything from Burgundy is going to usually get a better price than something grown in any other part of the world, I guess. But so as a group, that cooperation means a lot. But I would think out of the 37 growers, how many of them are like brand new, kids on the block?
The thing is that Burgundy is a lot about tradition. There are not many new kids on the block because, usually it's families that's been there for generations. And so it's that for Latour, but it's that for many people. And I think that one of the main assets of Burgundy is that people have a very thorough knowledge of their terroir, of their variety, of the way of doing it. The problem is with climate change, we also have to be able to check the tradition a bit, to be able to
adapt,
look for new solutions and adapt our way of doing.
Now, I haven't gone into a wine store here. I think most of the way the wine works here is more of an allocation, limited allocation. There's a limited amount of wine, and it's pretty much swooped up by wine buyers all over the world pretty quickly. Are there, if I wanted to collect a wine, and I know there's a limited wines, I won't mention brands, but some are limited and their price tag is extremely high. But maybe some of the smaller growers grow just as good and make maybe not just as good, but very good for a fraction of the price. What commands price? Would you say limited supply is a major driver? driver?
Limited supply is obviously a major driver for the prices, yes. Because, you know, there are lots of people interested in wine in the world, and there are not so many big names, and everybody want to taste them, know about them. And so, yeah, that drive the prices. Whereas, as you said, sometimes, you know, that's our plot, but the neighbor's plot is not as bad, and maybe he's doing as good as we do, but he's less fashionable or
not gonna
less
have the brand
known
out,
or
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, so how do you know all that? So if you're, well, you get probably a fair amount of Pinot Noir from Latour, but if you were to recommend people to buy, how would you, obviously the number one thing you want to say is Latour is the best, right? I mean, why wouldn't you? But for somebody who's looking to buy, the grapes are grown, and they're treated maybe a little differently from each
Yeah, I
place,
think,
but
you know, nowadays, I think that you have to look for lesser appellations. You know, when you're a newbie, I think in a good year like 2020, 2022, you will find amazing wines coming from places which are less fashionable than Meursault, Puligny. But if you look at lesser appellations, you'll find amazing wines probably.
Right.
And then I think the most important thing is to taste and make your own taste, not believing too much in people telling you what is good, but keeping in mind what you think is good and what you feel is good.
Right. Well, part of is the consistency factor. You know, when I open up a bottle of Latour, I know it's going to be, every year is going to be a little different, obviously, but I know I can taste it, you know, whereas maybe some of the smaller wine people, they're not as attuned to that particular terroir or that particular vineyard that they've had for 75 years or so.
Yes, I think that we try to really, our philosophy is that also to just do fine tuning. You know, I don't think we'll reinvent the wheel. The family has been making wine for more than 200 years.
Why would you?
So every year is just going to be a fine tuning and trying to make the best of the possibility of each year. You know, my philosophy is that when you taste a wine and you taste another one next to it, the difference you'll feel comes from the year, the place, but not from Christophe having fun with, I don't know, amphoras or whatever.
Right.
Just trying to fine tune, do the best possible one, but still with the same structure of doing things.
Right. Well, when you're on the top, when you're the gold medal winner every year, you know, it's hard to completely change what you're doing, because you know you've already got the
it's the thing is props. To have the idea is to have respect for all of the generations that succeeded here and done a few tests and refine the way the selection of grapes, the selection of winemaking techniques and so on. So I don't think that just my generation will just reinvent everything. We'll have to keep that knowledge and refine it again and put our little stone on top of the hill.
Right. And we had talked a little about this. You're in a much more insulated environment here, because pretty much anything grown here is going to sell. When I went to Napa for a wedding last year, I went to a vineyard and they weren't going to actually pick the grapes that year because the price of wine went down, the cost of doing it went up, and they just decided, because of the demand, to drop it a little bit. Are you seeing any kind of pressure like that at this point?
No, not in Burgundy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I can understand why. But okay, so how many different vineyards do you actually have to look at? I mean, and you got heads of each one of these, I imagine.
In Burgundy, we look after, nowadays we do more than 30 different wines coming from more than 65 different plots.
Oh my God.
And that covers roughly 120 acres, something like that.
Yeah. And so you have to have a pretty good idea of what's happening in even a third of a plot or a quarter of a plot. And you might treat that a little bit differently with your
the thing is, I've got a friend that is a professor at the university, and I was talking with him about precision agriculture, and he said, Christophe, all of you are just doing precision agriculture, you just don't know it.
Right.
Because each week I walk one time up, one time down every plot.
Wow.
Having a look at the vines and so on. But a plot, the biggest plot we have is probably 2 acres, and the smallest one is like a third of an acre.
Wow.
So that's the scale we're working in Burgundy, And I often say to the people that each vine, we do all of the jobs on the shoots, and so it's done by hand. And each vine, when it's pruned on its own. We look at how did it grow the year before? Will it be able to have 2 branch, 4 branch, 6 branch this year? And so we prune, and then we go to the next one. And that's the same thing all during season. So the scale of our work goes down to 1 vine.
And you still have 120 acres.
Yeah.
That's a lot of.
Yeah, I'm not alone.
Yeah, right. But how long? Let's see. Are you waiting? When do you actually do your pruning? Right before bud break, or do you wait for bud break? And how long does it take to do it?
Usually we do the pruning in 2 periods. From the 15th, 20th of November until February, end of February. We choose the shoots we will keep, and we get rid of everything. And then to postpone the bud break, we will shorten the shoots during March.
I see. And the residue, when you prune it, you're not leaving. Are you leaving it straight in the field, or do you take it in and actually do a composting process?
No, it's put in the field and shredded in place.
In place, yeah, that's more effective, I guess. Okay, you're a key driver in a project called the Parent Project.
No, the name is wrong.
Okay.
No, it's what we call Terroir de Corton.
Oh, okay.
It's
Corton, is that the hill behind us?
It's here we are in the Montrachet.
Okay.
Corton is another hill where the estate is sitting, and where we are one of the big growers. The hill is probably like 300 or 400 hectares, so double acres.
Wow.
And we own 60 acres on the 4 or on the 6 or 700.
So that's almost half of your production is in that area.
Yes. And so we've been working there with all of the growers, more than 80 other growers and land owners, to try to promote biodiversity at the landscape scale again. So the idea is that if you want to, again, plant trees or so, is the land is very expensive in Burgundy, and people are very
sure,
and don't want to lose too much space for a tree or 2 or hedge or so. So the idea is that if people work together, instead of saying, okay, I will get rid of
an entire
row, I'll skip half a row, and my neighbors keep half a row, and we'll be able to have a hedge, for example.
Again, cooperation.
So, and so we work at the landscape with everybody to have more biodiversity. There is, like here, we have a wood on top of the hill, but the idea is that all of the biodiversity we have here, if you look in front of you, there is no tree, no hedge in here in Puligny.
Right.
So all of the biodiversity is
that's going to be up
here,
top.
will come to here, maybe here, but it won't be able to go down to the village.
It's too much.
Because they need corridors, paths.
Right.
So the idea is to recreate paths for
as time goes on.
Yeah.
Especially when you start seeing real impact from climate change.
Yeah. So if you have these corridors, the bats, the birds, and everything is able to spread all over the surface because they have places where they can hide. They have corridors to go back to the forest at night and so on.
And move,
So the idea is really to map the territory and say, okay, in this place, there is no tree in more than 100 meter radius. We need trees there because it means that we will never see birds in this place because there is nowhere they can put themselves, for example.
So, okay, so where do you see it? I mean, it's impossible because of the acceleration of climate change, but where do you see the direction for Burgundy in general, Latour and you specifically, let's say over the span of your career?
I think, we've been working nowadays, we work a lot on how to manage the vineyards that in place in the more efficient way to produce good grapes, to keep the terroir in good shape, and with climate change. So we've been working a lot on the canopy management, on the soil management, to keep a high quantity of some in the soils and to avoid too much need in terms of water from the plant. So that's one of the big things we're working on. Then we also work on what are we going to plant next year, in 2 years, in 5 years. So we've been looking for new rootstock that are able to suck the water harder, maybe to be able to cope with drought more easily in the future. And also with the foundation, we're working on Pinot and Chardonnay that's going to be able to help us to cope with climate change again. And I think then there's what I will do before retirement, or the guy coming after me will do, and that's the work on density. I think at one point we'll have to lower the density to lower the competition for water, being able to keep cover crop all year long, and that's thing we have experience with our Beaujolais vineyard, Ardèche vineyard. We have vineyards elsewhere in France.
And here they don't, the regulation doesn't allow
nowadays the regulation doesn't allow us to do that.
So part of it is you're working with the government, and rightfully so that they take time.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want any quick fix.
You don't want to make that choice overnight, obviously.
Right.
But at the moment we're accumulating knowledge through other vineyards about this, and also obviously reintroducing old varieties, old Burgundian varieties that we got rid of because they were not able to ripen very well in a cooler climate. Whereas nowadays, like Aligoté, which is quite famous now, which 20, 30 years ago looked like a bad variety, and nowadays everybody's very happy because nowadays we're able very regularly to ripen it and keeps a good acidity, a tangy finish. And so I think there is also work that we're already doing as a corporation, but also with the colleagues to look after new varieties that are actually old varieties.
Right. You mentioned that you've got 120 acres, 60 different plots. How many plots would you say are large enough, or that you actually bottle as an estate for that particular plot? And how many of them are just blended?
In Burgundy, we have the concept of climate. That is a place that has a name and is known for making one specific wine. So we do more than 30 different wines because each of our climate is bottled separately. We do a blend that is called Corton Rancé, which is a blend of different Corton, but we also bottle the different Corton one by one.
But they're a blend of the same variety.
Yeah.
So that could be
Pinot Noir, but from different places.
Could be very delicious one year and a little more boring in another year, I guess, right?
No, delicious every year, but with different personality.
I see.
But you know, that's Burgundy. Here, we are making Chevalier Montrachet in this plot. Behind that wall, it's Montrachet. And below the other wall, it's Bâtard Montrachet. So here you see we are making 3 different wines. And there is just a few meters between them.
Well, you're not involved with the marketing and it'd be too complicated for me to understand, but how do they, I imagine the different elevations make a difference, first of all. Second could be how old the vine is. There could be a lot of different variations, but
it's really much about the place.
Yeah, which of the big, extremely well-known places are there out of the 30?
In here where we are, for us, it's Corton, Corton Charlemagne, Montrachet, Bâtard Montrachet or Chevalier Montrachet, and in Pinot, Romanée Saint-Vivant, Chambertin. These are the Grand Cru we are making.
And you know what's crazy is if you're back in the United States and you're going to a place like Total Wine, you know, a big wine store, and you're seeing all these different labels, you don't realize, and I noticed this when I went to Elba, Italy, everywhere I've gone, I'm standing and I'm looking at least 3 or 4 of those wines that I could almost throw a ball to or kick a ball to, you know. So it's kind of a crazy concept, but it shows the attention to detail. That's the thing I look at, the fact that you guys know each area and you actually know the aromas and the complexities of each area. Do you have, you know, when you're at the end of a year, when you do your tasting, are you surprised sometimes that, wow, this one really stood out?
Yeah, you know, I always say to the people that the climat and the terroir concept is very much a historical thing, you know, a construct of human beings.
Right.
Every year when doing the winemaking, you know, we pick the Romanée Saint-Vivant, which is one of our most famous plots, just below the famous Romanée Conti. And you know, when you look at that, it's not very impressive. It's almost flat. The soil's quite deep for Burgundy, you know,
because it's settled.
Yeah, and there's nothing impressive in the place, you know. And
except
every day we take a sample from all the tanks, you know. And so the first tanks that we've been picking, usually the sample's already quite red, and the newest one is very pinky, you know. Mm-hmm. And so it goes from red to pink, and in the middle, usually there is the Romanée Saint-Vivant that looks like it's been picked like 10 days ago. It's already beautifully colored, aromatics, and so on. And so I always say, okay, it's a historical contract, but still there is a bit of magic.
Yeah, well, that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
That makes it fun to drink too. So, okay, I think, is there anything else that we didn't cover that a person because a lot of people don't have the ability to fly to France, but what would you tell maybe even a connoisseur who just has never been able to come here about how they should select a Burgundy?
Again, really, I say if it's possible, tasting, and following your own taste, and and starting. You don't need to play with the big ones first.
Right.
You know, there is so much pleasure to find in the lesser known appellations. Right. And you know, I think because of social media and so on, people tend to want to taste the big ones, whereas the truth is you can have so much fun with simpler, lighter wines.
Right. It's my wife drinks the cheap wines, and I like the better wines. But you know, I think when I did my sommelier test, they said that very few people on the planet could taste the difference between a wine that's 40 to 80 euro versus 2,000 euro. You know, to me, I can always tell when a wine is older, you know, but not necessarily all the nuances of the wine when it's that expensive. But part of it is also the fun part of collecting or drinking a very expensive bottle of wine for an occasion, you know, and then not too many people get to do that or enjoy it. And that part of that exclusivity makes it, you know, so special.
Yeah. That I think I should not say that maybe, but the best wine is the wines drank in good company.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Good company usually means they like wine.
Yeah, obviously.
Right. So, well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, and we'll stay in touch.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay. Thank you for joining the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Click subscribe and like for ongoing insightful conversations. Explore our webpage for show notes and additional resources. Visit our guests' webpage for deeper insights. Your engagement is the foundation of our journey, and until next time, keep pursuing wisdom.